Hey guys, welcome back to the CNC Auto channel. I'm your friendly neighborhood mechanic, and today we're back on Project Retro Joe, which, if you remember, is our 1978 Chevy Corvette that's been off the road for 20 years. We're going through this one system by system to get it roadworthy again, and we've already done the fuel system and we've already done a general inspection. Today, we're going to start working on the ignition system and what it takes, whether it's this type of car or any kind of car that's been off the road for a while, what it takes to get that ignition system back up and running. So come on and let's get into it.
So if you remember from our initial inspection, crawling around underneath the car, we could tell right away that the spark plugs had not been touched in a very long time. Just look how rusty and dirty these things were. So we knew immediately that the ignition system needed some attention. So we're going to step through here one bit at a time and replace or repair the system components. So here are the plugs out of the engine, and it's a good idea to pull them out and lay them down on the workbench in the order in which they came out. That way you can kind of see what's going on inside each of the cylinders. And in this case, man, they're covered in oil. So there could be a little bit of oil fouling, some other issues going on inside the engine. We'll just have to get to that at a later date. But these things were definitely due for a change. So besides the spark plugs, the next thing you're going to want to look at is the spark plug wires. As you're taking them off the spark plugs, you may notice that they're real hard to get off. They may fall apart like these did here on the left. If you follow the wires, you may find holes in them or nicks or chafing areas like in the middle picture there. And if the boots got too close to the exhaust, they could even melt like the picture on the right. So if you see any of these sort of things, you definitely want to replace these wires. What will happen is that spark that's supposed to travel down that wire and go through the spark plug will jump out of the wire to the engine block and you'll have a misfire. So definitely want to take this out of the equation so the thing can run as good as possible when you're done. When replacing the wires, it's a good idea to go ahead and mark the ones that are on the vehicle in some way. You can mark them like I did here, A, B, C, D, E, whatever, or you can just mark them by the cylinder that they go to, 1 through 8. Either way, just take it one step at a time, one wire at a time. Take the old wire off and lay it next to the new wire set and match the length of one of the new wires. That'll be the one that you want to replace that old one with. And then just go to the next one and the next one. Just make sure that while you're routing the new wires, you're going back through the area that the old wire went through, especially staying away from any kind of pinch points or hot areas or where the wires could get damaged. So now you're done with the wires and the spark plugs. The next piece of the system we want to address is going to be the distributor. And so the distributor's got a lot of parts inside of it, and we'll take that a little bit at a time, one step at a time. Here's a picture of the distributor before and after it's been put back together here. Inside that distributor, the things we're going to deal with are going to be the cap, the rotor, the ignition module, and the coil pack. So here we are looking underneath the old distributor cap on the left, and as you can see, there's a little bit of corrosion on the points up there at the top and around the edges. A lot of times you'll see that real big white fuzzy stuff all over those little metal tabs. The other thing that we see here is some rotor rubbing. It looks like the rotor rubbed on the plastic housing there near that center electrode. And note also how that electrode is almost worn completely flush. On the right, you'll see the new cap and that electrode in the middle and what it should look like sticking down, about a quarter-inch or so and nice and rounded over. So definitely was time for a change. This blue thing is the rotor, and there's not usually a whole lot wrong with these other than some corrosion around these metal contact points that are pointing to here. This one doesn't look too bad, but just watch for corrosion and melting on those metal parts right there. Here's what the distributor looks like underneath the rotor, and you'll find here some weights with springs on it, which control the advancement of the timing. And this little black box over here on the lower right, that's your ignition control module. If the car's got a bunch of age on it, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and replace that ignition control module because it controls the coil sending spark. And so you'll get all kinds of strange drivability issues if this thing's starting to go bad. So it's just good insurance before you try tuning the vehicle to get these things in good shape. If the distributor cap itself looks like it's got some corrosion on the terminals underneath the cap or some cracks or anything like that, it's a good idea to replace it. In this case, we replaced it due to some corrosion. And when you go to replace it, you'll need to take the coil out of the old one and put it in the new one. But when doing so, don't forget to replace the little gasket, the donut gasket, and that spring and electrode that sit underneath the coil as shown on the left. And then when you screw the coil down, make sure that that screw goes through the black wire shown on the right. A lot of times people forget that and it just won't work right. When replacing or checking out your coil, just look for any evidence that it got hot. Like here, we see some evidence that maybe there was some overheating or some burning or some arcing going on in here. Also, check the wires themselves for cracks. Someone must have found one at one point here and wrapped this one with some electrical tape. So we definitely needed to fix this, and we went ahead and replaced this coil. And here she is all buttoned back up. Nice new wires. All the guts of the distributor have been replaced as we showed before. And so that's the ignition system done. She should be ready to run on all cylinders again. And like I said before, just be careful to route those wires safely and keep the arcing from happening between the wires or between the wires and some metal grounded portion of the engine.
So that's it, guys. We've gone through the ignition system, got new plugs, new wires, new cap and rotor, new coil pack, um, new ignition module. Like I showed you, just take it one step at a time, one wire at a time. Make sure you route them away from any kind of heat sources or pinch points, and you'll have no problem. Once we get this thing started and running, it'll be so much easier to tune it and find any of those other issues knowing that all of the components are good to go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If there's something else that you think our community could learn, add some comments down below. If this was helpful to you, if you enjoyed it, we'd love to hear that as well. Take the time to hit subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy following along with Project Retro Joe. It's been a real fun one. Next time, we're going to be digging into the cooling system on this thing. So I hope you'll come back and join us. Thanks for your time today, and God bless.